Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Friday Debate Podcast, episode number 10. Now, when I told myself that I was going to do a podcast for Android Authority, I knew that there were going to be some challenges, and that was what I was going to really be excited about. Sure enough, I've had a great time already with the challenges that it has presented. I've learned a new form of editing with the audio and everything, but scheduling has obviously been one of the more difficult aspects of the Friday Debate Podcast. That being said, I ran into some technical difficulties last week when I thought that I had the scheduling down on pat. I ran into some syncing issues with my own personal audio, so what you're hearing now, and I will apologize ahead of time for the quality of this particular podcast, what you're hearing is the raw capture using the program that I used to record our Skype calls. So you're going to hear maybe not necessarily the quality that is up to my standard for the podcast, but also some of the little sounds that Skype does when we're messaging each other inside of the chat. But nonetheless, I just wanted to go ahead and give you that small little warning about what you're about to hear. Actually, to me, it sounds quite fine, but I just kind of hold myself to a particular standard when it comes to the quality of everything I put out. But nonetheless, it is nice to have a nice little backup plan when it comes to getting the audio out for you guys. And after trying to figure it out and kind of coming to the solution, I am bringing you a double feature this week with the episode 10 of the Friday Debate that was recorded last week along with this week's Friday Debate, as you're going to hear it either at the same time as I'm releasing this or a little bit later today or at the latest tomorrow on Saturday. We talked about sci-fi technology that we may have grown up with and how technology has kind of evolved over time, and whether or not the technology that we grew up with has finally made it to our hands and, let's say, to our eyes and ears, has made it to our day today. I am joined by our usual panel. We have Andrew Grush, who created this topic, or rather got the inspiration from one of our fellow writers, as you'll hear in the podcast. And we also hear from Jonathan Feist and Joe Hindi. As always, keep it tuned to Android Authority across all social media networks and make sure that you are on the Friday Debate Podcast on your podcasting programs. But you can always go to the YouTube version of it, of course, if you don't happen to use podcast programs. And if you are there, thank you so much for watching. But make sure you try to get us in a even more easily digestible format, which is, of course, the audio version on podcast networks. We are going to move into getting some of your user feedback from us, not just feedback, but questions and different topics you might want us to talk about now that we are in double digits for the episodes of the FDP. Without any further ado, once again, this is the Friday Debate Podcast, episode number 10, Sci-Fi Today, as I called it. Hope you guys enjoy. I don't know if any of you guys saw my tweet from a couple days ago, but I'm doing something that I've always dreamed of doing, but I didn't realize it until very recently. You guys didn't catch it?
Missed that. Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
So on Sunday, on a whim, originally created by my girlfriend, God bless her and thank God for her. It was her idea, and I had never even thought of it up until she said it. But on Sunday, I'm driving up to San Jose with my girlfriend, and we're going to Wrestlemania.
Oh, that's awesome!
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah.
I've never been to a wrestling event, and suddenly I'm going to Wrestlemania. It's the first one I'm actually picking. So we just went online and we found tickets for not too much. We're obviously not going to be like close to the ring or anything like that, but I'm super stoked. And I remember I tweeted out, guys, I'm going to Wrestlemania, and like a bunch of my Twitter followers just kind of went nuts because people know from my videos that I'm a wrestling fan.
I think I went to a Smackdown when I was a kid. And they're pretty fun live because you don't get the censorship or like the cuts or anything like that. Oh, of course, it is WrestleMania. It's a pay-per-view event, so you're not going to get the cuts anyway, even if when you watch it. But when you do, when you go to like the televised ones, you don't have to deal with like the commercials, and they swear a whole lot more than they do on television. Oh, that's for sure.
Well, maybe not nowadays, given how many kids are in the audience nowadays, and it's like they had the PG era for a while. But what year did you go to SmackDown? This is my curiosity.
Oh, man, let's see, 1996, 1997, I think. Yeah, during the Attitude, I think it was right before the Attitude Era or during it or something like that. It was pretty, it was not exactly kid-friendly back then.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the era that we all miss and adore. But yeah, that's just like what's going to happen. And then a couple weeks from now, I'm actually going to pop up to Seattle for a 4-day weekend, so... But until then, I got a lot of work to end up doing. Haven't heard from Feisty over there. How are things going on your end, man?
As well, just enjoying the warm weather. It's been rainy this week. We woke up this morning in crazy fog, almost like I've never seen around here before, and then the skies cleared and a beautiful day. So other than that, things have been great. I've been focusing more and more of my time on the Tab Times website, and that's a lot of fun. You guys, if you don't know by now, I love my tablets, so this is a great fit. I'm loving it. I come to you now from a tablet already.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so Feisty over there, the one who goes into the great unknown and does our podcast from a tablet.
Well, he doesn't even own a computer. He doesn't?
He has a typewriter, is what.
Yeah, pretty much. No, he has a Chromebook. That's not. It's a computer, but it's not like a traditional computer.
I would debate that I have it booting over into the Ubuntu operating system.
True.
I would debate that makes it a computer.
Yeah, but you can't do video editing or anything that you're going to need to be doing eventually at Tab Times.
It's not powerful enough to do so, but it is capable.
I've done video editing before on an Ubuntu laptop, and it's not easy at all.
Well, and I'm assuming that was probably a decently spec'd Ubuntu laptop, whereas his would be...
For the time, this was probably 6 years ago or something, but I just remember finding the video editing software in it, and it was... So, what would be
what do they even... I would say, what even programs do they use?
I think it was called Kino. Kino. It was called Kino. And if there are people out there who are thinking, I was about to put the question out there, what's the worst video editing software? And a lot of people probably say something like Windows Movie Maker. This was worse than Windows Movie Maker. So
I don't know. Sony Vegas Pro is pretty bad.
Really?
I used that. Yeah, I used it for my first few videos at Android Authority, and it's one of those. There's not a lot of structure to it. It's very just here's your timeline, do stuff there. No sequences, no. I think there were presets, but I'd never figured out how to use them. But it didn't seem like very strong software to me. When I moved to Premiere Pro, I was like, this is what I've been missing.
Yeah, hard to beat Premiere Pro, especially after. I know everyone still there are a lot of people, Mac users, who still use Final Cut Pro and stuff. And to be honest, I want to see what all the fuss is about, because the people who use that swear by it. Meanwhile, there are the rest of us who swear by Adobe. But yeah, we were mentioning Feisty being a Chromebook guy. Do you, Joe or Andrew? Do you guys have Chromebooks?
No, I have no reason to buy one.
I've considered them. Just as a backup device, because I like new shiny things, but not for any practical reason. Because I have tons of. I have my laptop. I have my desktop computer. I have several laptops that are within anywhere from 1 to 4 years old that are just laying around that can pretty much do the same thing. So it would be kind of a waste of money for me. But I do believe, I used to not like them at all. I used to think they were pointless, I'm not going to lie. But I've seen that change. I think they do have a place.
So you did think they were pointless? Because at
one point I did.
Was that is it a worthy, let's say, evolution of the laptop that we were expecting? Because I wasn't too sure about it either. A fully cloud-based computer, it makes sense where we are in technology right now, but I wasn't sure myself either.
Well, yes and no. Some of the reasons why I'm now more interested in Chromebooks in the past is that I don't want to say they moved away from that vision, but they have relented a little. Now they're starting to have, Android apps. And so I think even Google realizes that pure cloud isn't there yet. I think it could be someday, but it's a bold vision. And I applauded Google even when I wasn't a fan of Chromebooks. I still applauded the idea that they were trying something different. And I always believed they had potential to do well. They just aren't necessarily what I need. But for someone who wants a worry-free computer experience and is just looking up internet stuff, but wants a display bigger than they're going to find on a tablet or a phone, or they need a keyboard, it's great, I think. And they're cheap. Try to get something for that price in the Windows world. Yes, you can, but try to get one that doesn't suck. The performance of a $200-ish Chromebook is generally better. I have used them, I just don't own one. They're generally better performance than what you're going to pay even $300 or $400 for in the Windows world.
Yeah, and the it may not be something that we thought growing up that we would see, that, because, growing up, we've talked about this before, we've had our computers growing up that are huge, and the big luggers, the compacts of the world and everything. And who knew where technology was going to go? But it looks like we are still going to have moments like that where technology will go places that we're not too sure, like if it's going to continue in that trajectory, or maybe we're super excited by what comes out. And that's sort of the topic that we have for here. So, Andrew, once again, thank you for putting together the topic for this week.
I want to give credit, real quick.
Sure.
I did refine it a bit, the way it was worded and whatnot. But actually, one of our writers, Matthew Benson, was the one who actually suggested this to me.
Oh, so. Great. Well, thanks. Thanks to Matt, for sure. So we're talking about I'm the title, as our listeners and viewers on the YouTube section are going to see. I called it Sci-Fi Today, and I couldn't think of a better title. So if it's super cheesy,
I like it. Oh, I like it.
Oh, okay, well there you go. We have a lot of technologies coming out right now that seem to be not impossibilities, but it's not really stuff that we thought we would see in the consumer space so early, or even for a little while. Everything from virtual reality experiences, that's really becoming a thing for sure. Augmented reality, foldable displays, or curved displays in the case of a couple of phones that we've had. So what sci-fi technology we're most excited to see, and how it might be applied to Android in specific, or even just mobile devices in the future. So that's pretty much our topic. I wanted to start off our discussion on this particular topic by asking all of you guys, and anyone can chime in whenever. Growing up, were there any pieces of technology from shows, like I'll throw out examples like the Jetsons, for example, or even like Iron Man? Were there any things growing up that you really wish that we would have today, but for some reason we don't?
Jetpacks.
Flintstones. the Flintstones had that dinosaur at the sink who was cleaning dishes. I could totally use that.
That's really advanced technology there, buddy.
Feisty's like, is that not
Feist
technology?
wants to go the opposite direction.
Man, no, the Flintstones had all kinds of those really awesome dinosaurs. Like I when I was a kid, I saw the Jetsons meet the Flintstones. And like
Yes.
there's like a bird that like you smack the bird upside the head and it breaks coconuts for you. Like, I'm totally with Feisty on this, and I will defend it to the grave. I would love to have dinosaurs and prehistoric birds that like opened coconuts and did dishes and stuff. That'd be awesome.
So what Feist is getting at is he wants genetic engineering.
Oh yes, so
he can genetically engineer a dinosaur.
He
or
wants
whatever
Jurassic
to help
Park
us.
is what he wants.
Yeah, but he wants them genetically engineered to help us, apparently.
Docile with the inhibitor chip in the brain or something. Okay, that's some awkward territory to get into.
All right, sorry, I didn't mean to throw us off course. Yeah.
Well, no, I did say in the original when we talked about this that we should stay semi-grounded in reality.
Oh, so Flintstones. Thank you. Well, Feisty, did you have I know Joe blurted out jetpacks, but we'll get to that in a second. Feisty, did you have a tech-based one from growing up, from your childhood, that you wish we had today?
There was a lot of James Bond tech that really appealed to me, to be honest. Invisible cars, that sort of stuff.
Okay. So Joe, it's jetpacks for you, man?
Yeah, man, because like that's one of those things that it's been in the news like every other year for my entire life. Like, oh yeah, we're this close to jetpacks. We're this close to jetpacks, and jetpacks don't freaking exist yet. Like, what's the holdup at this point? Like I remember like. Yeah, really. I remember like being like 15 years old, surfing the web at like the library at my school, and like seeing a news article that was like, "There's a guy who has a jetpack that works. It just weighs as much as a car." And I figured, we have mobile processors now, or system on chips that are like, less than the size of a fingernail. And we haven't figured out a way to condense jetpack technology to make it actually work. I'm disappointed in science.
Well, if I could,
for letting me down.
If I could put out one thing there, I think that we're comparing apples to oranges there. I know that we have processing that is incredible now, and our computing skills are through the roof these days. But that doesn't quite equate to jet propulsion, which is
I know. It's the whole Moore's law thing. I get that. But it just doesn't seem like there's enough people working on jetpacks. I think more people should be should be working on.
It really seems like a fuel thing to me, right? Like fueling things still hasn't evolved. I mean, and we've had this discussion already when it comes to like batteries in mobile devices, if we're going to bring it back to mobile. But in general, fueling things seems to be one way or no way. You know, it's going to be gas, which we're running out of. If it's electric, then the gas companies will just come in and say, no, we own everything. But yeah, to me, it feels like fueling something like that. That's where the hiccup is, and also the whole idea that I could blow up,
yeah,
kill the person.
No, that's a risk. That is a risk all of us jetpack aficionados will take gladly.
Jetpack astronauts.
They do exist to a form. You just have to have money.
Right.
Lots and lots and lots of it. But, I remember being 15 and being like, man, when I'm 30 years old, I'm going to jetpack to the grocery store.
That's going to be me.
and what's sad is, like when I was 15, it was like 2002. And I currently drive a car that's older than I was, I drive a 97, friggin' Mercury. Mm-hmm. I don't have a jetpack. It makes me sad. I'm sad panda.
And now I'm imagining a sad panda with a jetpack that's sputtering. It won't turn on.
Rocket Panda. It was an old Flash game. Rocket Panda. Look it up. It's terrible.
It's a classic game. You guys should check it out. It's shitty, but you should check it out.
The song is catchy. The song is very catchy.
Oh, okay. How about you, Grushy? How where do you land on all of these technologies that we don't have yet?
I'm telling you, he's not landing there on a jetpack. Sorry.
Well, as far as like things that from my childhood, you're talking about shows and whatnot. Jetsons was a big one for me, and particularly some of the stuff that I was fascinated by have actually happened. Like Rudy. I thought Rudy, the talking computer. I thought the idea of a computer that could actually interact with you and did be an assistant to help you with things was really cool. And yeah, we're not really there yet, but we're starting to be there. Artificial intelligence has come a long way. Digital assistants. Yeah, it's kind of, Google now and stuff is primitive compared to something like in the Jetsons, but it's a start, And then actually another one that at the time wasn't possible was the idea of like video conferencing, that you saw in Jetsons where the TV would show up and it would, and they would talk. I thought that was really cool. Little did I know that wasn't that far away, when I was a kid, but, it was still not feasible back then. Back when you had, slow dial-up internet, you weren't going to have a video conferencing situation.
Yeah, right. And
so actually some of the stuff I wanted has happened. I'm not saying there's tons of things I want now, but as far as from childhood, I don't know. Maybe I wasn't thinking big enough. I mean, yeah, there were little things like flying cars and stuff.
Yeah, see, that was what I was thinking. It was flying cars. Okay, so perhaps in Joe's case, he wants to be the thing that flies, but I would be good with a flying car. And I don't know. We have this inclination in the tech world to have things that we desire having, and it's only an idea, but the moment you ask somebody like, oh, well, how do you do that? No one knows how to answer that question. And flying cars, I think, falls under that category, which is the reason why I'm disappointed that no one has really thought about that yet.
Well, I mean, there has been. I mean, like when I was a teen, I was really into the idea of flying cars because it seemed like they were not that far off. I mean, there's been so many prototypes. There's a guy in particular, I think his name was John Mollier, and he had like 3 or 4 different designs that he showed off. Like they didn't go very high or whatever, but they did work to an extent. But he kept saying, "Oh, it's going to be sold this year," and then the next year, "Oh, it's going to be on the market this year," and it basically became vaporware,
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And so there are people working on it, but I mean, honestly, now that I'm older, even though I think it's cool, I think I realize that it's kind of an impractical thing. I think that the idea of self-driving cars and stuff is actually more plausible at this stage and probably safer than having us all in a bunch of airplanes.
Which is an interesting topic to bring up in terms of I did a talk with a few buddies in the tech space. Just a quick shout out to Trisha Hirschberger, who was the one who invited me to come out for a video that she was doing, and I think she also just got engaged. So congratulations, Trisha. But we had a discussion about how stuff like autonomous cars, as NVIDIA calls it, or self-driving cars, which is how everyone else will call it. they could put people out of jobs. This kind of technology could eventually make it a lot harder for people to just be people. And it's an interesting topic, and I think we would revisit that maybe a little bit later. I'm not too sure, but just put that out there.
I have to say though that pretty much that sentiment can be applied to almost every technology that's ever happened.
Oh yeah,
even going back to textile mills and stuff from the they put people out of jobs, but I don't know. I think sometimes you have to take you have to take some of those sacrifices. I'm not saying that all of them are good. I'm still a little leery. I am both excited and terrified. Actually, I was talking to Derek, our administrator for Android Authority and co-founder. I was talking to him earlier today about that, actually, how I'm both terrified and excited at the same time by what the future is going to bring us.
Yeah, exactly. And we're at the forefront of seeing where it goes in this particular part of our industry, which is, of course, mobile. So, just looking at the things that we wish we had, let's take a look at what we do have. And I kind of wanted to see, what you're excited about coming out these days in the mobile space, whether it's whatever the mobile space, let's say the consumer space, I'll put it that way. It doesn't have to be like just mobile, like smartphones and stuff. But, if we have things like virtual reality, I know that I am super excited about the HTC Vive, and yet I'm the only one that's been able to try it out of the four of us.
How was it? I mean, not to get too derailed, but how was it like compared to VR, Gear VR and others? Was it better, similar?
It's not it's not a huge derailing at all, because it is HTC, so it's perfectly fine. And I'm going to try my best not to just gush for the next 10 minutes, because I've done it maybe 4 times ever since MWC. But essentially, it's not anything like the Gear VR because it doesn't rely on a smartphone. It's a completely immersive experience with headphones and controllers and laser sensors that are put on different parts of a room in order to create a space that you will actually walk around in, and that's the virtual reality world that you're in. It's not just you sitting there and everything's coming at you. You're actually a part of the world. And because of that, it is connected to a computer. So it's
gotcha.
You got wires coming out and everything. It really does look kind of sci-fi steampunk in a way. And if someone who's never touched technology before will look at something like that and imagine having it on and be fucking terrified. I'm pretty sure of it. And just having all those wires coming out, it's like I don't know. I mean, what's that one? What was the one? There are a bunch of them, but the first one that came to mind was like Star Trek Insurrection, when the villain has like this helmet on trying to heal, and there's all these wires coming out of the helmet. It's something like that, but it won't fully be like that because it's supposed to be a wireless thing. But anyway, you get it all on, and the room that you're in disappears. It absolutely disappears. And then suddenly when the heads-up display comes on, when you look around, the way that the headset communicates with the lasers and then finally back to the computer, it's able to really see in real time where you are in this virtual space that it's creating for you. And then your controllers are basically your hands in that world. And there's no other way to put it. The whole world becomes your oyster. Like when you load up, the demos that they had were really, really spot on in showing what you can do. One world was like a underwater sunken ship, and you're there, and then this whale comes out of nowhere and starts getting up all close to you, and you're freaking terrified. And there was even an artistry one where you're in a cube, a virtual cube, and then your hands become brushes, and you can just start doing art everywhere. And then finally they had a Portal world where you had to, it was basically the game Portal, except you were playing a robot repairman trying to repair one of the Portal robots. It was freaking amazing.
How realistic is what you're seeing? I mean, is it pretty convincing, or is it pretty?
It's absolutely immersive, because you have the displays in the huge thing in front of on your face. You also have the headphones, so you don't hear a thing. All you hear is the world around you. So literally, you are a part of this world. If you're in a sterile room and it's all white, and you take off, this is what Michael Fisher said, shout out to him, this is what he said, but it's absolutely true what he said. They have that room really, really sterile for that demo. It's white everywhere. You only see one desk where the wires are coming from with the computer, and then the guy is there kind of guiding you through the simulations. But when you take it off and you just see the white world around you, the white walls and everything, you actually get sad because it's like you left this world and you just want to go back. And Yes, it is very convincing. Mostly because that's just how well these let's say games, but experiences have to be created. Where you could hear GLaDOS coming from behind you, and then you turn around and there's GLaDOS, and you pee your pants, and then like that's how good the immersion is. The floor starts to give out from under you because GLaDOS is filtering you out because you failed in that game, and then when the floor gives out, you actually step away like, whoa, am I next? And like you do stuff like that, and I was an idiot in the first demo where there are buttons on the controller, and one of them inflates a balloon, and then when you move the controllers around, you can hear like this audible boop, and you're like bouncing balloons up and down like a kid would when they're bored at school, and he was the guy giving the demo was like, oh, when you inflate the balloon, you can actually touch it. And he had to use the word touch, which made me look like a dumbass when I held one of the controllers in my other hand and tried swatting at nothing. trying to swat at a balloon that's not existing in actual real meat space. And I heard him laugh, and I was like, oh, snap. I felt like an idiot.
See, that's the thing. I mean, I haven't used, I have actually tried out the Gear VR, and it was not that, it was okay. But I guess to me, virtual reality is still a long ways off from being, truly immersive. I mean, like you said, it looks good and stuff, but like, I don't know. To me, I want to see a world where I can actually use my hands and feel like I'm walking and stuff. And I know that's probably way far off, but that's what I'm kind of curious about. Is virtual reality here to stay, or is it just going through another version of the 90s where it's a fad and then
this is probably the closest thing that you're going to get to that. And I think
we'll get to what I said eventually, but I'll probably be like 90.
and because it's HTC and Valve, in particular, I'm fully convinced that the reason why we haven't had Half-Life 3 is because they want it on the HTC Vive. They want it on there, and this is how they want the masses to play it, and this is what's going to sell the Vive. Everyone's going to start
probably going to be pretty expensive. I know they haven't set a price, but
yeah, exactly.
I heard you could be talking $1,000 or so. Is what
it was speculation, but
but I'm curious. I mean, because I've heard from some people say that the Vive is more impressive than like the Rift.
Oh yeah, that's what I've heard. But
I'm curious about have you used the Rift?
I did, but I had to take it off after like 5 minutes because I got a little nauseous. I don't know why, because I didn't get nauseous with the Vive, but that's
I had the same problem. I have a friend actually who has one of the developer kit ones, an older version of it, I think. But anyway, I got sick from it, and I was like, I don't want to say like sick, but I just felt like crap after using it, dizzy and
the virtual nose. I forget where I saw it the other day, but they were saying that. By adding in a fake nose, your own nose, so to speak, from a first-person point of view, it helps alleviate a lot of that, especially if you're like on a roller coaster in your VR.
Really? A nose?
I guess the idea is that you assume as it anchors you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just like you see a little bit of your face and your nose when you're looking. You don't think about it, but you do see that. Whereas in virtual reality, you wouldn't. So
many racist comments could be made of that.
So aside from the racist comments, this is where I want to jump into VR.
Yeah,
especially with the nose aspect of it, where of course, putting a digital nose is kind of virtually turning this virtual reality into an augmented reality, and I personally, that's where I'm more excited. VR, it seems awesome, especially like in a gaming sense, that complete immersion, that would be great. But, kind of what everybody dreams that Google Glass is all about, or, the Iron Man Jarvis computer, where you can walk around, you're seeing your actual own nose, but you're also seeing the digital stuff superimposed over the real world. So you don't have to be in a secure room so you don't hurt yourself. You can be out in the real world enjoying this digital.
I don't know, but then it breaks away from. I mean, I think AR is great for like information and even some gaming, but like for information, like you're walking by something and gives you pop up points about what you're seeing, etc., like tour guides and things. But I don't know. I think AR is more informational than gaming to me.
Well,
I think.
we've seen a couple iterations of AR, like, this is an old feature that used to be on Samsung phones and not Samsung phones, Sony phones, and imposing like dinosaurs and dwarves on your floor and stuff like that. So
or like, is anyone with the DS that had the little AR cards, and you took your DS and you put it against the card, and they.
Yeah. My first experience with that was with Bravely Default on the 3DS, and it came with a bunch of cards, and I was like, what the hell do these do? And like when I first started the thing, they were like, put the card on the table and point your 3DS at it, and I was like, no,
I know, I was like,
no. And then it did it, and and it's better than I thought it was going to be, because I thought it was just going to show me like a nice little scene that was superimposed over my living room, but like I had to like spin in circles to follow the characters and stuff, like, oh my god, where are they going, what's going to happen next? And like my roommate was looking at me like, what the hell are you doing? Because I'm standing in the middle of the living room blocking the view of the TV, like spinning in circles and walking around like, oh my god, where are they going to go next? And the ending was even better, because that one was like almost 10 minutes long, and I was at my girlfriend's house, and I was just wandering around the bedroom like I'm looking at the end of the game. Like,
I do say that one thing about AR, as far as gaming and immersive activities go, is that because you still are grounded in reality, because you're seeing the world around you too, it's probably less dangerous. I mean, as far as like, I'm not talking about like stumbling around, but I'm talking about like addiction wise. Because people get addicted to like World of Warcraft as it is, but a super realistic virtual world, I could see people spending 20 hours a day in it.
I actually had that thought during our post MWC podcast, and I just put it out there, and I wanted to find a channel to be able to talk about it with people at length, but I don't think that, maybe a little bit later in this podcast we could, but I want to make sure we don't step over Feist's whole idea there. So what?
Yeah,
so if augmented reality is where you want things to go, what does an ideal AR setup look like to you then, Feisty?
Now we're really getting into the sci-fi stuff.
All right,
Jordy LaForge's mask or glasses. That's what it's got to be.
Much. Well, there's two things I would reference. There's more than two things I would reference. First of all, modern day, of course, U.S. Air Force fighter jet pilots, their helmets, they're equipped with, I think the company's name is Loomis, is one of them. They create all of that, so to speak, augmented reality, Google Glass competitor type stuff. I think they're working on a retail unit as well, but they're just taking it to the next level, kind of a Google Glass type of thing. But jumping off into that sci-fi, I know I mentioned a few episodes back a television show called Continuum. And then there was a web series called, I think it was called H+.
Was that one of the episodes I was gone, by the way? Because I love that show.
It must have been, if you don't remember.
Must have been,
I don't remember it at all. So that was one of the episodes I was gone. That's a great show. Canadian show.
We were talking about wearables, and I wanted implants. So yeah, Continuum. That's total, sci-fi stuff at this point, implants and whatnot. But, the idea that your AR isn't just, a game that you play at a specific time or a small window that shows you navigation or the weather, but like a serious user interface that takes your whole visual range. So if you want to pull up, so to speak, YouTube videos and watch them at a, super low transparency level, just on a blank white wall, there goes society. We're all going to be out of shape and crazy, but...
and white paint will be in very, very low supply.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, to be fair, it didn't have to be white. It just has to be a room.
You know what? And that's what I swear to God, there's going to be. We have audio files now. We're going to have visual files if Feisty's vision of the future becomes a reality, where people are like testing various shades of color and coming up with the most optimum colors for walls if you want to experience certain things. Like, well, this YouTube video is a little cool, so you kind of want like a mango colored wall to add a little bit of warmth to the video.
Mango.
I never thought about all this, but yeah, I need to get into the paint industry apparently.
Yeah, right.
At least for the diehards. And you're going to see those things on Amazon, like the super expensive $10,000 thing of paint that apparently adds like definition to whatever you're doing in the augment, kind of like those gold plated doohickeys that you plug into headphones and they cost a bunch of money for no reason and no one buys them anyway.
So you know what would be easier than painting your wall or looking at different colored walls? Maybe if there was this device that you could just stick to your head, it covered your eyes. Oh wait, that's just virtual reality.
And to that point, so it sounds like a heads-up display of sorts.
Yes, a heads-up display. Thank you. That is the word I was looking for the last 5 minutes.
A HUD, yeah, like a HUD. Maybe so like Iron Man-esque.
I want useful information, but I don't just want useful information. I also want it to entertain for those few times where it's appropriate to do so.
Well, here's the question that I had with that, because I've tried, like, God, what was the name of was it Field Trip? That you can go to like a historical landmark or a museum or someplace that's like well known, and then the camera turns on and you point it at various landmarks and things will pop up to show that, oh, there's more information, here's some more information about what you're doing.
There's Google Goggles and Field Trip, yeah.
Oh yeah, Goggles, there's the other one, yeah. I see where the value is in it. I'd be super excited if there could be something that you could wear that gives you a HUD of sorts that allows you to do that. But what would implementation look like there? Because for something like Google Glass, it's obviously like a small display that just sort of gives you contextual cards when they see fit, based on context, obviously, yeah. But if it's going to be things that pop up in the world that you're seeing, do we not have to install things in the real world that will communicate with the AR set? That's what I'm thinking.
Google
Sims
Translate. Sorry, go on.
Gary Sims did a really awesome video on the Internet of Things, which essentially answers that exact question. Because I guess according to Gary anyway, the way the Internet of Things is going to work is, there's sensors and all that jazz that gives data, and then that data is sent up to the cloud, and then in the cloud decisions are made. Yeah. And so I assume it would be something like that, where like, you have the sensors on, the headset, and when you look at something that, that visual data is, processed and sent up to the cloud, and then the cloud is like, oh, that's a donut shop, and then it shoots it right back down, and then once it figures out what it is, it picks a point of reference and just pops a card out. At least that's how I assume it would work given today's, technology. But it's a really awesome video. Everyone should watch it. Definitely. Yeah. It's on Android Authority YouTube channel. It's called What is the Internet of Things? And Gary Sims does it.
Yeah, IoT, the term that is the bane of many people's existence these days, because it's everyone loves using it. It's really dumb. But anyway, it is the ubiquitous term now, and that's what we think of when we think about that. But I imagined that the answer was going to be yes to my question, and it's good that Gary made that video with that in mind. Because when we went on a media tour a few months back, these companies, these mobile companies, and I won't say which ones in particular, they have this idea in mind, and they already have mock-ups of what let's use the term tech city would look like. And yeah, there are sensors everywhere. There are literally things all over their mock-up of a city that will communicate with everything. And if you're walking outside and there's like weather conditions and whatnot, it will change how certain buildings how they shade themselves or something like that. Or in your heads-up display, you'd be able to see like, the weather has this going on, and you look at a building and it's like, these are the things that they have that I could buy if they're on my list. Like, it's kind of crazy. It's literally tapping into all the information that's out there in the world and among people and making it a thing, like the IoT. That's the Internet of Things, as they say.
That's the kind of shit that scares me a little bit. I mean, I'm both excited and terrified by that kind of stuff.
I'm not surprised at all. Like,
yeah. You did remind me though. I don't remember. This was a while ago, but I remember reading that some company or city, like I said, it's been months, but anyway. They were talking about installing technology in their downtown. I think it was the city, but I don't remember. Anyway, where like the parking spots would be equipped with a sensor that could communicate with the cars. And so like you would, your car would tell you where the nearest parking spot that's vacant is for like a meter, Mm-hmm. And so it's those kind of things, like you're talking about the city. I think that those are the things that are kind of cool. It's the ability to, like, no longer have to go around the block 100 times to find a parking spot. Your car would tell you where the nearest parking spot is and navigate you to it.
Or drive it.
Yeah, that's true. Or drive itself there, for that matter. Yeah, I think that's the stuff that really, excites me about Internet of Things. It's just the idea of, that contextual, everything building upon each other, and
Yeah. Did you have more on the topic of AR, Feisty, before we move on to Joe?
Not so much AR, but in regard to the Internet of Things, I think there needs to be a lot of client side as well, where a lot of these devices need to be able to make decisions and do their thing without having to hit the internet. Great example is, I think it was originally called WordLens, and then Google bought them and rolled them into their Translate app, where it augmented reality. Again, you point your device, your phone's camera at a sign that's in another language, and it automatically and visually translates that for you real time. And so that sort of client-side stuff, I think, will be extremely valuable as well.
I think that stuff is nice. I've used Google Translate in that sense before, mostly in China. And it mostly works. You get, obviously the translations, come back not necessarily perfectly grammatized, if that's a word, in proper grammar, let me say that. And,
but it's enough to get you around, and that's
in a way
that's important. Yeah.
Oh, the far better. Because I guess the reason why I'm a little skeptical is because it was in that situation that I thought I would be able to find my way somewhere. But what worked a lot better was for me to use Translate as an actual translator, talk into it, and then it would show up the Chinese characters for someone to read, and then they would be able to direct me. That's what was far more effective in that situation for me.
Okay, and you think that's just a limitation of the people behind the translation, programming, if you will?
Well, also it was just kind of slow. Like I was using like my T-Mobile world, like global data there, and it's always slow when it's outside the US. So having a faster internet connection probably would have helped me out. So it was better to transmit a very tiny data file of me asking a question that could then be translated properly, instead of trying to stream in real time these letters on a wall,
Perfect. And I guess that's what I was getting at here, without trying to veer off too far, was the Internet of Things is awesome. I'm very excited, but client side, all those translations needed to be client side for you, so you didn't have to rely on a slow internet connection.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so Joe, what that we have right now is exciting you about our somewhat sci-fi future of tech, if we ever get to that true sci-fi point?
See, the thing is that when Greshey sent the question to all of us earlier, he said, and I quote, "Let's try to keep ourselves at least semi-grounded in reality." And that all 10 of my top 10 things that I really want in tech just shattered like glass and fell away. So I've been trying to think of all day, and
I didn't mean that it had to be stuff that's happening right this second, but meaning
I know,
not something that's 700 years away from us achieving.
Well, okay.
Hey, I saw an article. I saw an article
Jurassic
somewhere.
Park's real.
It is totally real. How did people not know that Jurassic Park is real? When I was a kid, I was so scared of velociraptors. I didn't walk around in my house unless a light was on.
I was like that anyway. It wasn't velociraptors. I just didn't like the dark.
No one's as bad as not to completely veer off, but I am. Not to veer off subject, but no one's as bad as one of my older sisters. She would get so scared when lights were on that she would push myself and my youngest sister in front of her and make us search the house when she thought someone was breaking in. If we were left alone, she was 3 years older than me, and she would make us walk around and look for Or one time she got spooked, so she ran out into the dark onto the curve and waited till people got home, because running outside on a curve would be the safest place as opposed to staying locked in your room.
Somebody didn't watch horror movies.
It reminded me when he said scared of the dark. It just reminded me of that. Sorry.
But actually, I was thinking, and I was also trying to think of what my answer would be for this, but I got distracted thinking about Feisty's augmented reality world. And I imagine a game like Ingress, where you have a bunch of players in in our actual world, and being able to like drive into a city and like, like every city has this where you're driving down the highway and you can look over and see the entire city like off to your right a little bit. Like just slightly in the distance, and being like seeing like little like columns of light popping up showing you where the other players are in the city, and just being able to see something like that would be really cool. And like,
maybe the portals, because showing the other players, you might have some privacy violation stuff there.
All right. Well, I was.
I got you.
Maybe it's something you can opt into and opt out of. But yeah, like being able to see like, portals also would be like, you see portals in like as green columns of light, like, oh, I'm getting really close to this portal. And then like you see like, an enlightened light pop up and you're like, oh crap, someone's trying to hack it. I better hurry, get a speeding ticket and get angry and quit Ingress. But, but the thing that I really want is smart homes.
Didn't even think of that.
And like, and not just like smart homes, like in the classic sense. I mean, like smart everything. I mean, obviously within reason and totally controllable by human beings. But like, I've always wanted to be able to pick up my cell phone and like adjust the temperature, turn on the washer and the dryer and all that jazz, turn on my car outside. And it's something that we're really, really close to, because we do have like smart appliances, and there are ways to start your car from your cell phone. But the proliferation of something that's mainstream and connects everything together. Like I want my refrigerator to be able to talk to my dryer. Not that it needs to say anything to it, but I still want it to. You never know. You never know who's going to be friends in the appliance world. Maybe my lights and my toaster become best friends. I don't know. I would like to see if that's true, but have like be able to put like 2 pieces of bread in the toaster and then like start the oven, and then like when the oven reaches a certain point and like say I'm like baking bacon and I want toast with it, once it gets to a certain point it automatically pops the toast down and then everything finishes at once, like stuff like that, where it's we kind of sort of have that kind of stuff now, but it's really, for lack of a better word, janky. Like it's really boxed in. It's really janky. If it does work on your smartphone, everything has to be connected to your home router pretty much. Like there's not a lot of ways to access that from outside the home. And it'd just be really, kind of nice to be able to do stuff like that and be able to manage my entire home from my couch.
What about the security aspect? Is that have you ever used one of those things? Because I actually have one in my home. While you were talking about it, I was actually opening up my app. It's called Vivint. That's the name of the company, at least. And yeah, you could like unlock the doors, or you could see if the doors are opened or closed for too long, or actually opened for too long, I should say. And I actually have cameras we have cameras in this house where we can see what's going on in the house, if anything is. For the the applications for like say the security stuff, they don't really make any sense until something actually happens. But you never want something to happen, like.
Yeah, there's a lot of common sense that comes into that. Like, obviously, if you have like a locking mechanism, you're not going to have, a password that's, you're going to have a good password for it. And, wherever that password is stored, it's not going to be in plain text. It's one of those things where it's common sense and experience just will alleviate most of those problems. And then, there's always the option to, take your house offline if you're not feeling happy about it. And you can just have it connected to, the Wi-Fi in your house. You're just connected to the router and not connected to the actual internet or something like that. It seems like a lot of this stuff is just, it seems like it would be common sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So a smart home, and you bring up an interesting point that everything still has to be connected to like your router, for example, and that is the case with us. We still need an internet connection for it to work. So if a burglar were to like cut the power lines, it probably wouldn't work very well. But the thing is, we have this issue, and I think everyone here would agree with me that the thing that is supposed to power all of this sci-fi tech, I think that's what needs to be improved first, right? Because imagine a home where the router is not really working very well. troubleshooting routers and internet connections via routers is still one of the most convoluted things out there. And
could not possibly have worded that any better.
Well, that's how convoluted it is. Like,
oh man,
no one knows to go. Like no regular consumer knows to open up a browser and go to like 192.168 and all that stuff, you know. So I think we do need to get to a place first where the data comes from, what funnels the data into what uses the data needs to be perfected first. And in the case of like virtual reality, well, not virtual reality, but augmented reality, if you're out in the open, it's going to be, you need a great wireless internet ecosystem in a city, for example, or even anywhere else. You know, imagine if you had augmented reality, but then you had no connection out in like the Amazon. You know,
true enough.
I just imagine like a
that's
little.
That's why I harped on the client side stuff, having all those databases stored locally, and that speaks exactly what you're talking about, where we need to get this stuff solidified before the rest of it's going to work.
Yeah, what were you gonna say, Joe?
I was going to say, like, you know, having no connection there, and, you know, it's just someone's like, oh man, you know, my AR thing lost connection to the internet, and there's just like just LOL just bouncing around like a screensaver. just kind of laughing at you. You're like,
yeah,
funny.
It's the
jackass,
like
like
troll face. Yeah, the lol troll face.
See, here I thought Joe was going to go with, you know, is that a real alligator, or is that an augmented reality alligator?
Oh man, I can't wait for those to happen. And, all right, no, I take it back. I can wait for those to happen. That was more of a caustic statement than a literal one, because you know someone is going to be like, oh, that's just a virtual reality car flying towards me on, you know, and then they end up getting hit by the car, and like you know it's going to happen someday, and it sucks because people are going to get injured. But then, you know, on the other hand, you know. Yeah, we will have a whole new category for the Darwin Awards every year, because, you know, there are going to be those people who get too drunk or too stoned or something like that. And they're going to be like, oh, LOL, that's not real. It's the augmented reality. Boom. And then something bad happens to them.
It sucks, like, but it's true.
That's going to be the 22nd century's most famous last words. It's not real. It's augmented reality.
Oh, look at this cute kitten. Yes.
It sucks, but it's very true. Do you remember when GPS and navigation first became a huge thing? People were driving off of bridges because their car told them to take a right or something. I'll never forget those stories. I just kept thinking about it. I was like, okay, these are the people who just can't make decisions for themselves. They're not even looking at the road, if that's the case. Oh man. The implications behind all this technology that, you know, may or may not be coming down the pipeline, you know, that's a discussion I really, really want us to have one day. It may not even really fit in the scope of an Android Authority podcast, but this whole idea that if we keep coming back to virtual reality, and I don't know, I'm very passionate about this topic because emotion and mental health are very important to me in particular. I'm the kind of guy that meditates every day and tries to keep myself, you know, zen. But we might have this thing in the future where the people who hate their lives would prefer to just remain in the virtual world. And depression could become a huge, huge thing. Given the kind of technology we might have that can augment or completely replace reality. And if Grushy is terrified of the IoT, I'm more terrified of just where our species would go if technology somehow replaces what is supposed to be a wonderful life.
You do realize that if every single one of our ideas come to fruition, including my jetpacks, you know what that equates to? Those fat people chairs from WALL-E.
Yeah, I knew someone was going to bring that up. Yeah. That's terrifying.
It is terrifying. Like, I don't want to be a super fat person. Well, I mean, it's not going to happen in my lifetime, obviously, but I don't want my descendants to be super fat people who can't walk anywhere. Like, that's not any good way to live. But no, you're absolutely right, man. Like, and that's going to be one of those hurdles that I think people are going to cross when they actually get to it. Because I mean, like, there are people who are actually literally like psychologically addicted to social media. Mm-hmm. And and not using social media actually gives them like withdrawal symptoms, and that is terrifying already. Like Like I uninstalled Facebook for like a week on my phone just to make sure I wasn't like addicted to it. But then I tried to install like Google Plus for like a day, and I had to. Well, I mean, yeah, I had to reinstall it because I was sharing stuff from in my Android Authority post. But it was just like I don't think I am, but like I might be. And then it's like, it's kind of scary to think about being addicted to looking at a screen.
Yeah.
And it's like, if it's already happening now, dude, no, you're right. Like when this stuff actually does come to fruition, like VR and AR, especially VR, there are going to be people who get lost in that, and, all the health problems and mental problems that are associated. I mean, never mind like, the mental health, like depression and stuff like that. But, sitting for 18 hours without moving, like say hello to deep vein thrombosis and, obesity and, early onset heart disease and all that, horrible stuff that happens to people who live sedentary lifestyles.
We're ending this podcast on such a high note right now.
I know. If these things happen, people are gonna die.
Well, but see, it's if we're focusing on the scope of sci-fi, I just realized that's the kind of stuff you don't even get to see. Just how many horrible things had to happen before these sci-fi worlds got to where they are now, where things are all hunky dory, and that's really what my thought is. I really do feel like we're gonna have a transitionary period that's gonna be, oh man, it's gonna be a really odd part in time. It's gonna be a really weird era.
I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be one of those things that gets phased out of humanity. I'm trying to think of like a relevant example, but all right. I hate to go like political or anything like that, but it's like with people who don't like gay people. Eventually, all those people are going to die, and what are going to be left are the people who accept the gay people lifestyle and gay marriage and all that stuff. Like there's going to be a time and a place where tattoos and piercings, like most of the people who don't like that kind of stuff are old. They're older, like 40, 50, 60, 70, and like a good 50, 60 years down the line, all those people are going to be gone. And then the people who are going to be left are people like us who don't care. Like, oh, you're gay with piercings, whatever, I don't care. As long as you do your job and are a good person.
That's very true.
And I think it's going to be the same way with VR and AR tech, where the people who abuse that tech and the people who get really, really terrible, into that kind of stuff like you're talking about. I mean, it sucks, but those people are eventually going to get phased out, and the people, it's evolution essentially. Mm-hmm. The people who are able to keep going just will be the only ones left.
Yeah, I mean, well, regardless of how you feel about any one thing, the generations that follow it, if they are into that thing, then that's what's going to happen. And regardless of how you feel one way or another on a topic, it's eventually the people who have this antiquated view on something will soon become extinct. It's kind of a crass thing to say, but it's true. We're not going to be around once all of these technologies come out. And who knows how they're being applied in the future?
Precisely.
Mm-hmm. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? It was just a thought that came to mind. I mentioned Michael Fisher earlier, who said that piece that once he took off the Vive, he was like, "Oh, I want to go back." And I thought, that's the saddest thing I've heard this whole show. Like, he was laughing when I said that, because he was like, it's kind of true. Because imagine, if I'm just one person who had that experience in a demo, imagine what the life would be like. Imagine how this entity would be. This thing will become, an entity in and of itself that people become addicted to. I love it. We didn't even talk about like phones
at all. Yeah,
we didn't talk about curved displays or anything like that. We did mention the processing stuff. That's what you said, Joe.
Yeah, that was the topic I was going to talk about, but we never got to it.
But the whole Moore's Law thing, where processors keep
as far as the technology that I'm excited for, foldable technology and stuff.
Okay, well, go ahead, go for it.
Go for it, man.
Well, I was just gonna, that was kind of what I was going to talk about. Is that I personally think there's a lot of potential there, and right now, everything we're seeing at this point, is pretty much just for aesthetic or novelty reasons. But there are devices, the Note Edge and the S6 Edge, they attempt to bring new features. But what I'm really looking forward to is the ability for devices that can truly like transform like their size, the shape, go from being a phone to a tablet to, basically right now.
You want Transformers?
Well, no, I'm talking more like on the lines that like I've always liked the idea of one device that can do everything, but unfortunately right now, any device on the market that attempts to do everything, they make compromises, whether it's a tablet that's also converts to a laptop or a phone that's, you have to make a compromise. But if you could actually take your phone and fold it down multiple times or stretch it out or, I think that would solve some of that. I think it would pave the way for truly all-in-one devices, And I think that's what I'm excited about because that's something we're pretty close to. I mean, yes, right now we have there's obstacles in the way, such as like finding bendable, twistable battery technology, but Samsung's working on it. I know the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology is working on it. So I guess to me, one of the biggest technologies that's coming right around the corner that I'm excited about is useful technology that's foldable instead of like right now flexible tech is, it's cool, but is it really like game changing? No.
But I think it's novel is what it is.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, the idea of a device that could fold down and, pack away, I think that could change things, I think it could be, the idea of tablets going extinct because you have a device that's 13 inches when you need it to be, or it's 5 inches when you need it to be. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're that far from it.
Sorry.
What's that?
I was going to say, Gresh, you're a hardcore multitasker. When you have one device that can do it, do it all, don't you think you get stuck with only being able to do one thing at a time because you only have one device?
Yeah, that's probably a possibility. I guess I just think it's cool for consumers, not necessarily for myself, just to see where it goes for consumers in general, I mean, but yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, yes, I am a multitasker. That's true. But
smart flip phones, just saying.
They're not happening unless you move to Korea or Japan. Get over it.
Feisty's just scared of a future where he might only need one device because I think
that's why he's all like, no, I don't want to.
I think secretly he likes having like 60 or 70 different like really cheap devices around him. Link them all up, create a supercomputer one day.
And they're all
I tell you,
connected
like
to the
out
internet.
of all the innovations in the last several years, probably the most exciting to me isn't really that big of a deal, is like having my Google login. Because if I change out a laptop or whatever, everything just follows me. When I turn on Chrome, all of my settings, all my savings, I love that. I love the idea of everything following you to new devices. And I think that's something I want to see actually is just, information in the cloud that follows you wherever you go on whatever device you have. And that's kind of what Google's been pushing,
Yeah, dude, I was thinking about your foldable or your bendable, foldable, flexible displays. Yeah, and I just got this like mental image of like a kid like video chatting with like one of their parents who are like overseas, in the military or something, and like them like grabbing the phone at the top of the bottom, just stretching it out, and like their parents' face starts to look like that guy from the Scream painting.
Oh God!
just like being the other parent looking at that, being like, no, this is
we
bad.
went from depressing our audience to getting back on topic to now we're scaring the crap out of them.
Is there any technologies like outside of the mobile scape that you guys are really looking forward to that may not be there now? Like for me, I want to see continued improved, AI. I like the idea of like, assistants that are around that pop up out of your like house and stuff that follow you around that will like provide, information for you. Genetic engineering, I think is really cool, scary, but cool. Cures to diseases. I mean, cancer, anyone?
Okay. That's
cleaner energy sources. That's the stuff that really excites me. I mean, mobile's cool, but the stuff that like really will change the world,
I read an article last year, and I think I might have written about it. I can't remember, but it was about like it isn't Google working on like a quantum computer right now, or something similar. I'm going to look that up really quick, but I'm pretty sure they're working on something like it's like a quantum CPU or quantum computer or something like that. And that was really exciting when I was looking at it because like the processing power is supposedly ridiculous.
I think for me it would be while you're checking that out. I think it would be. Honestly, I am kind of excited for autonomous cars, but caveat here. I completely understand all the concerns about how that would change the economy, for example, the workforce. What I would want out of these autonomous cars is still the ability to turn it off and be able to drive the car myself, because I want to be able to drive my car still. It's still a fun experience and everything, even on just that basic level. So if it's like iRobot, it can't look like that. Honestly, I don't want cars that look too futuristic. I hate what was up with all those hybrids that were coming out, and they all had to look so stupid. Like with the way that I really hated that. Like if you want a car to feel futuristic, you don't need it to look like tacky, and that's what I felt like they were. So
yeah.
If we
all you need to do to make a car look futuristic is just put lights on the bottom of it, so it looks like it's floating. We're using like a hover thing, and just make it go like it's floating.
You can that point. Where's my hoverboard from freaking Back to the Future? That's what I want.
Same place as my jetpacks. Not enough people are freaking working on it. Yeah. All right. I found it. It's crap. All right, since 2009, Google has been working with controversial startup D-Wave System, which claims to make the first commercial quantum computer. And this was written in 2014, by the way. And last year, Google purchased one of D-Wave's machines, but independent test published earlier this year found evidence that D-Wave's computer used quantum physics to solve problems more efficiently than controversial machine. Or a conventional machine, sorry. And it's a technology review article that goes on for another 5,000 words. But I guess they're launching an effort to build their own quantum computer. And I think if they succeed with that could get really interesting and really fun. I also read somewhere that they were they were building some sort of nitrogen cooling room for it, like a whole room that was cooled, or like a whole chamber just to cool the thing that they're building.
That's terrifying to me.
Yeah, a little bit. Quantum computer that runs the internet. They're building freaking Skynet, guys.
I think we've established by now that Google is Skynet.
Well, just remember this, because in a good 20 years, when we're all fighting the robots for our lives, we have to go to Mountain View to that super cooled room. That's where we got to go to fix everything.
Everyone make a Google pin. Oh wait, that's that's ironic.
You got to log in, the Google pin moves. You really want to go to John Feiste's residence in Portland, Oregon. Joe Henney's residence, Columbus, Ohio. You do not want to go to Mountain View, California. I'm definitely not there.
Given what just a very maybe we gotta wrap it up after this. By the way, this
is the podcast that doesn't end.
Well, there's so many things we could talk about in this topic, right?
That's when I came up with it, I kind of went with a broad topic on purpose, but then at the same time, it's this could get really go crazy, and it kind of did.
Tangent,
but that's okay.
Yeah. I'll keep it simple for you with one last thing from me. I would like a new input technique. For typing, a QWERTY keyboard is great, and there's voice dictation and all that kind of stuff. But I think I'm due for a new input technique that's a little bit easier to work with.
Brainwaves?
I don't know what that is, but
brainwaves.
You know what I really want?
Yeah, telekinesis. Exactly. That's all you need.
Yeah,
I saw these gaming gloves that people use for gaming. And I thought how cool it would be to be able to wear half a keyboard on each hand and be able to just... Huh?
I thought they had something like that.
They have something like that for games, and it's one-handed. Yeah, for it's one-handed and only has the WASD and the surrounding 10 keys. But I'm talking figure out a way to do half a keyboard on each hand, so you don't even need a keyboard anymore. You can just kind of sit back in your chair and just kind of type with your fingers no matter what they're doing.
So, so you look like a very docile human being, just only your fingers are moving, your arms.
You look like Houdini, casting a spell or something, shim shim shalabim.
Well, the first image that came to mind was freaking Freddy Krueger's glove, that's what I thought.
There you go, a QWERTY keyboard gloves with Wolverine claws that come out of it.
The funny thing I was thinking though about technology is the stuff that really makes a difference and changes the way our world is are the things that we didn't even think about, and they're usually stuff that existed 10 years or so before, but they weren't. They either failed or they just didn't get enough attention. Like smartphones, for example, you could have seen that trend coming, I guess, in a way, because smartphones existed even in the, late 80s. It's just that they sucked. Virtual reality, you had the 90s was full of virtual reality devices. I mean, even like, Nintendo had various things like power mats and power gloves. And, a lot of these techs have made things have made their way now. And so really, I'm sure the next big thing is already here now. We don't recognize it.
Well, we're living in the thick of it, right? So, years ago, the stuff that has coming out right now, those are the things that everyone, if we got in a time machine and we went back to like the 80s, they're like, what? No way. That's a whole computer in your hand. And like, you imagine going back in time and you show Steve Jobs the freaking iPhone. Like, his mind would be blown,
I bet 1970s Steve Jobs would be like, that thing's freaking ugly. Get it the hell out of my office. We're trying to build actual computers here. What is this handheld crap? No one's going to want this. 20 years later, I am so sorry.
I know, and you're still crying. Like, I brought you back your invention, you idiot.
See, guys, we're on the right track with tab times. Tablets will be cool again.
Well, I was thinking of what Grushy was saying, how it goes when we have technology that sort of circumvents a form factor or something that we've had before, it repurposes it, and then all of a sudden it's amazing. In my mind, like, okay, this might be a little bit harsh, but smartwatches just don't fall under that category yet. And nope. They really don't.
If you guys all know, I have a Moto 360, and I praised it. I liked it a lot, but ultimately, do I use it now? I will be the first to admit my wife's using it right now. Will I use it again? Sometimes I like it for going out, but like right now I have a Fitbit, and yeah, I know. But anyway, the main thing that I missed from, ironically, the thing that really I liked about my smartwatch was that it could tell time. I realized all this time I just missed a watch. It's kind of nice. Yeah, I realized, I would have been just fine with just a watch.
That's true. After reviewing the first smartwatches, and thank God for their existence, because they give us, it's almost like the Joe Biden of tech. Like there's always something funny you can say about smartwatches right now, because they just don't quite get it yet. They just don't quite get there. Yeah. They're fumbling through their existence at the moment.
Well, every single smartwatch has a compromise.
Exactly. And I reviewed the first few, and then I realized I was looking at one of my like men's lifestyle / fashion websites, and there was like a sub $100 watch that was very minimalistic and looked really awesome. And I was like, man, that looks good. And I realized, I just like nice looking things on my wrist. I don't care what it does. If I do care what it does, it has to be in that moment. It's not going to be something that's going to be on my wrist all the time that needs to have a certain functionality, And even then, smartwatches have that problem because they are not able to stay on your wrist for a long time. They have to get off eventually.
That's the biggest thing. Is I think smartwatches are never going to be big, in my opinion, because they don't solve any problems well enough. Even if battery life gets, all that smartwatches can do is potentially someday replace regular watches. That's still a long ways off, because before they can replace regular watches, they'll need to have at least month-long battery lives, and we're a long way from that. And but the idea of, I just don't think that there's anything a smartwatch could do that could be compelling enough to get someone who never liked wearing a watch to wear one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The only thing smartwatches did for me is that I realized I kind of missed having a watch, because I was a watch wearer for a long time. But then when I got when I got my first flip phone, I was like, I don't really need a watch anymore. And so I stopped having one. And so the only thing smartwatches really did is remind me that I kind of like having a watch on,
Smart homes, man. That's what I was talking about earlier, having everything connected together, being able to look at your watch, tap a little icon and start your car, tap, little icon and swipe a little bit to turn the temperature down. Like that's where I see smartwatch, like for smartwatches to be mainstream relevant for everybody to want one. I think that, they would have to be able to control something that would be too tedious to control with your smartphone.
I agree.
See, but do you for a smart home, I guess to me, if I wanted a truly smart home, I wouldn't need to push a remote or push a button. I would be able to talk to it and it would be able to, recognize the command. Yes, that would be really expensive.
True enough. Touche, sir.
Microphones everywhere, but that would be what would really be cool.
I don't know. It feels a lot cooler.
Touche.
To me, it feels a lot cooler to like swipe on a wrist and then be like, boonk, and then everything turns on in the house or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, you would want to be able to be like, computer, turn on fridge, or wait, why is the fridge off? Computer,
and that's why Josh spends $500 a month on groceries
a day.
I'm trying to save money, man. My electric bill was so high the first time I saw it. I wanted to turn off the fridge every now and then. But no, like it would be. Yes, it would be really cool to say, computer, turn on my car, computer, turn on the air conditioning and stuff like that. But I don't know. If, again, like Feisty said, client side, you need to have the commands be very natural. Because now they're really canned. Like, even Google Now right now, I use it all the time in order to do searches and stuff, but you got to talk like a robot, basically. And you got to... it's not going to be
You have to have the
natural.
technology get better. Right now, voice recognition is still, you have to talk a certain way. And But I guess for me, the idea is that how smart's your home when you have to reach for a remote or reach for your phone to do something? I think that those should be options, but I would want good voice technology too, because what if you're lazy as hell because you live in the future and you don't want to move off your couch and your phone requires you to extend your arm all the way out and you aren't going to do that.
I want to take it down. That's the best quote.
What are you talking about in the future when people are lazy? Do people have been not getting up off the couch to change the channel on the television
Since
for
like the
40
80s,
years?
90s.
They
didn't have remotes 40 years ago, did they?
I don't know. They might have. How the hell are we supposed to know? We've never seen anyone use one.
I love that quote. I can't wait to use that on you again, Grushim. Like the next time we go to CES and I'm like chilling, trying to like rest because a video is really stressful. You're like, dude, are you lazy? I'm like, dude, I'm living in the future, man.
Yes, I thought that was a good quote. Thank you. Yes, I thought that was a good quote. It's true. We're entitled to be lazy now. It's the future.
I love it. It really does sound like it's been. If I'm not mistaken, it's probably been a long day for all of us, and I can tell because
that's why we're all kind of rambling. And
we all got loopy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, at least for me, in my case, I'm just slap happy. I mean, it's it's after
Joe's
midnight.
In Joe's defense, he's just always this way.
No, I really am exactly like this all the time. But there was one quick little tiny thing I wanted to bring up, and that's perspective on our part. Because, Josh, you've tried the HTC Vive. You're one of a few hundred, maybe 1,000 people that have ever used it, right?
Yeah.
And we are tech bloggers. We see this stuff like the moment it happens, and we know about all of this stuff the moment it happens. And, the people who listen to this podcast are likely tech nerds like we are. And, they likely read about this stuff 45 minutes after it happens when we write about it and publish it. And it makes me wonder a little bit, we were talking about AR and VR and smart homes and, and all this stuff. Everything that we've talked about has products out there, that can do that stuff, the Google Translate with, changing stuff in real time on the walls, the translating and, the Gear VR, and in my case, there are smart appliances out there. But, people just don't really know about them yet.
Yeah.
And because, Grushy said something really funny earlier about how smartphones have been around since the 80s and they're only popular now. And it's, maybe these things are all going to be popular in the future. And we only know about them now because of our job, because we have to know about them.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, I'll talk about things like with family members that aren't techies. And they're like, really? That's possible? Like when we, Josh, you remember, of course, the Energis demo that we went to at CES, and I was talking about that with one of my sisters. She's like, "Why you can do that?" For those who don't know, Energis is the company. They do wireless beaming of electricity. It was 15 feet range or something like that. And I was talking about that, and they're like, "That exists." They thought this was like a super. A lot of the stuff I'll talk to because I'm a super nerd to my family. Most of the time, they don't listen, but when they do listen to what I'm talking about, they're like, "That's possible."
I know it feels sick. Yeah, no.
Does anyone else have that? You just feel like, you could tell they're not really listening, but they're like,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My girlfriend does that to me all the time, and then I'll actually pop quiz her later. I'm like, hey, do you remember when I was talking about that thing? And she was like, yeah, it was just other thing and be totally wrong.
Yeah, the
Be
fridge talking to the dryer. I'm like,
and I was like, that's, and I tell her, I'm like, that's one. And then when she yells at me for not listening, I bring it back up again.
I do feel like, though, that probably the biggest technology, though, that we're missing, I mean, that's going to change the world is something that we didn't even talk about tonight, you know, and yet it probably exists now, you know, which makes me, oh, I'm sorry. What's up, Joe?
Well, no, that's exactly the thing I was talking about. Like, it probably is something that we've talked about tonight, because I'm sure that there were 4 nerds in the 80s who sat around talking about smartphones. Like, man, when computers get better and they can make smaller, more awesome processors, this is going to be huge.
And it's like saved it on a mixtape. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
If only people could hear us right now.
A 4-track recorder, like old bands used to do. Exactly. And it's like there were people talking about smartphones back then.
They just record on the tape and then hand it around.
What was that old fangled thing that people used to use? The radio, right? You did some 3 a.m. like college radio show or something, like where people were talking about, like, man, these smartphone things, they could be big someday. And like, now we're sitting here talking, doing the same thing, like, man, VR, that could be big someday. And it's like, I think it's because we are such a, I don't want to say we're such a small, there are a lot of tech nerds out there, but comparatively speaking, we are not a very large group of people that know all of this stuff right off the top of our heads like we do.
Yeah.
And like an example of that, and I swear to God, this is the last thing I'm going to say, and then you guys can wrap it up. But when the Galaxy S6 Edge was announced, my Facebook feed went freaking nuts. And I had people messaging me, because I'm the guy that they message when they want to buy a new phone, asking me about it. Like, man, that Galaxy S6 Edge is amazing. I've never seen curved displays like that. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? They did it with the Note 4 like 6 months ago, and LG has 2 of them. This is technology that's been around for longer than a year and a half now. And they're like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. Like, there are already smartphones out there with this technology. And more specifically, there's already a phone out that slopes like the S6 Edge does. And they're baffled. Like, this is something that is in the Verizon store, or maybe not in the Verizon store, but it's in stores. Mm-hmm. And people still don't know about it. So, it's one of those things where, like, did we not know that smartphones were going to be big back in the 80s? Or did the people who knew were just people like us? And, the norms didn't pay any attention to it until it became a mainstream thing, And that's kind of the point I'm trying to make is, maybe we have talked about it, and just given our situation and given our experience and what we do, maybe the mainstream public just isn't ready to talk about the stuff we're talking about right now yet.
Or I hate to put this out there, and it's just a thought that I had. I had a very specific type of studies back in college, but it makes me think this way. Perhaps the people who are creating these things, or perhaps the people who are able to control the way that this information gets out, or how people learn about it, then maybe they don't want to empower the masses just yet. Maybe they don't want to empower them with all of this stuff that could empower, even the basest person.
It's a crinkling noise. Do you have a tinfoil hat? Is that?
It is official. We have warped into a conspiracy theory podcast.
Tangent Authority Conspiracy Podcast.
Now recording out of an RV in the middle of the desert because UFOs exist. Damn it!
I'm in a van down by the river.
On sort of a closing note, I'm just curious. Unless you have something else you wanted to say, closing wise, Josh. Is there any technology like that's become big in the last few years that any of us had underestimated that we were like, that won't be a big deal?
Not really. I mean, I think again, we're reporters, so of course we have to take.
Well, I'm talking about like even before like we were in this field, like even like 10 years ago, or like for me, I'll be the first to admit it, and you can all laugh at me. When I first heard about the iPad, it's like, who'd want a large smartphone basically with no cellular connectivity? That idea is stupid.
Yeah, no, Grouchy being sassy, who would have thunk it?
I know, but I mean, but as far as me thinking iPad, I mean, tablets turned. Though to be fair, tablets are starting to decline a little, so maybe I was right. Just it just took a little while for me to be right. But I didn't see a lot of potential in tablets, which
dude, for me, that's the Chromebook. I did not think that many people could go to a straight to a browser only with extensions experience. as many, because I mean those are like top selling things on Amazon right now.
It was that way. I mean, I thought it would do well among casuals, but it's done better than I thought even, and I think it'll continue to do better.
Well, that's the thing. I had a conversation with somebody on Google Plus about it, and it's like, like most people can put most of their experience, and that's the thing that all of the Chromebook fanboys tout, is it like, oh yeah, most of the things that people do can be done on a Chromebook. And the way I think about it is like, well, like most people have like 9 things out of 10 that they could do on a Chromebook, but like almost everybody I've ever met or have ever talked to have that one thing that they need to have a computer for, or a Windows or a Mac or something, like Adobe Photoshop or hardcore gaming or video editing or something, or iTunes, something like that, where they absolutely have to have something outside of the browser experience. And, it's, the idea that I know that a lot of these people are probably giving up something by going to a Chromebook, and that the fact that they're okay with that is something I didn't see coming a mile away.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that, to be honest. That cloud computing has become so ubiquitous already. There's still ways for it to go, but for it to have had the staying power and the influence that it has already, that's something that I didn't think was going to happen right away. That the people were going to be so willing to have all of their data up in this space that could easily be pilfered.
Especially in the Edward Snowden era, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. Well,
damn.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point. I mean, even like Google Drive and things like that, I didn't think it'd be, as far as cloud storage, I didn't think it'd be as big as it was.
Yeah.
I knew it'd be big, but I guess I thought there'd be more people that were paranoid by it. But a lot of people, even businesses, are relying on it now.
Yeah.
How about you, Jonathan? Is there any tech that you didn't necessarily think would be that big of a deal that has proven you wrong?
Yes, and it's almost insignificant to mention, but small portable Bluetooth speakers.
Those have went crazy. That's a good point. I guess I don't even think about them, but yeah, everyone has a Bluetooth speaker anymore.
Yeah, and I get the big Sonos machines where you can really hook in. I guess that's Wi-Fi, but you can still do Bluetooth. I get a hardcore home theater system. I get the car stereo. I get headphones. But a little tiny speaker that really, a lot of them aren't very good. The best you can do is listen to this great podcast on it.
Hey, man, I listen to this great podcast in the shower with my waterproof tiny Bluetooth speaker. Waterproof is a big deal.
That's not the only thing that's tiny in his shower. Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Wow. Sir, you have some balls that need kicked right now.
I'm sorry.
It's time for bed, Groshy. It's time for bed.
Oh, come on. You all were thinking it.
I wasn't thinking it.
None of you else were mean enough to say it, that's all.
So, Bluetooth speakers, Feisty.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, the conversation was even bigger than I expected, so I keep underestimating those things.
Oh, yeah. It's, well, especially, I would definitely agree with you, especially when you consider the people who actually buy the ones that are near the checkout counter.
Yes, exactly.
Those small ones, like $16 Bluetooth speaker, great sound. It's like it's the size of a penny. Like what are you doing?
If we weren't already super over our time, I would actually ask the opposite. As far as, is there any technology we thought was going to be big, but
everyone could just answer smartwatches and be done with it.
Did anyone actually think that was going to be big though?
Yeah,
I guess I never really thought it was going to be that big. I've always been kind of weird about it.
Speaking on the sci-fi topic, everyone wanted to be Dick Tracy. I mean, come on now. So it's just...
Well, I guess flying cars probably is one that many people thought would be here by now.
Well, true, yeah. But, yeah...
Reliable high-speed internet?
No, you can't have that.
I know, God forbid. God forbid. One day, fiber. Fiber's got to happen one day, I swear. I heard a pop somewhere out here. Never mind.
45 years from now, Josh is going to be an old guy sitting out front of his disconnected house with his grandchildren. I swear to God, fiber is still going to happen in my lifetime.
I'm irregular. Oh my God.
The day after he passes away, that's when it comes to.
I know, right? I get that letter from Google. It's like, oh, we want to bring Google Fiber to you.
At the rate they're expanding, by the time we're all that old, they will be in 7 or 8 cities, I swear, and moving faster.
Yeah, it's that meme where the guy's like, any minute now, and then the next slide in the comic is them like a skeleton. Oh man! All right, well, we've had one lively show today, and it's been a good one. You know, we were able. I like these lighter topics because we're able to go in so many different directions. But you know, maybe next week we will have a little bit of a more. Maybe we'll have some sort of reactions because now, just putting this out there, the S6 Edge is now in our hands. Lon is going to do the review for that, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. I will do the unboxing because I got one too, but I got the actual retail packaging, and somehow he didn't. But I will be doing the unboxing, so stay tuned for that and the full review. And maybe next week we'll do our reactions to that phone and the M9 and the S6 probably, which is technically what Andrew you wanted us to probably do something like that today, but we went with this.
We had thought about it, but I thought we might.
I think this turned out a little bit better, considering. But next week we might revisit that, and we'll see what news comes out next week. And that is what happens with the Friday Debate podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching this podcast on YouTube. But if you are, remember that you can listen to the Friday Debate podcast on all of the different podcasting networks. So fire up your iTunes if you have, or Pocket Cast, or actually, no, not SoundCloud. I still haven't been able to finish that. Stitcher is the one I wanted to say, and you'll be able to listen to the Friday Debate podcast on all of those networks. The best ways to listen to the FDP. But if you are on our YouTube video, remember that there is a little card over on the side, so you can head over to the podcast channel on our website at androidauthority.com to hear the other episodes of the Friday Debate podcast. And of course, we are on episode 10, so congratulations, everybody. We have hit double digits in our podcast.
Yay!
With that in mind, I do want to remind all of our listeners, I will have said this already in the intro, in the canned intro, but I'm going to start opening up a certain portion of our 1 hour podcast to responding to listener mail in a sense. You can comment on the YouTube channel, or we're going to have a Google Plus post, as Andrew and I are going to construct that sometime in the next week, that all of you can comment on, and we'll probably do that every week so that you can give us your questions and see what you want to learn about us, about tech, about mobile, and we'll be able to answer those in the Friday Debate as well. We want to open it up to you guys, our wonderful listeners, and once again, we want to thank all of you for watching and listening to the Friday Debate podcast. Follow all of us on social media as you see fit, and all those links are on the post at androidauthority.com for the FDP. So that should do it. We've it's not how long the podcast is, but the call itself is at an hour and 40 minutes. So it's been one hell of a call on its own, but it's also been one really good podcast. So we're gonna go ahead and do our usual outro. Thank you guys once again, and for the last time, everybody. And remember to stay tuned to androidauthority.com for not only the Friday Debate podcast, but also for everything else that we do, because we are your source for all things Android.